Well, hello, this is Pastors on Pop. I'm Matt. I'm here with my co-host James, and today we're talking Juice Wrld and the music our kids listen to. Well, James, it's good to be with you again. Woo! When we are, I think this is fourth podcast where we're talking about music, if I'm counting right.
I think so.
Yeah, so today we're going to talk about the music our kids listen to and how do we handle that as parents. That's like one of the big questions that comes to us as pastors. And so before we get to that, maybe just let's dive into our own childhood.
Yeah.
We kind of grew up in a little bit different eras. We're about 10 years apart from each other. So when you were a kid growing up, what was the music that you listened to?
Yeah, so I lived in this trifecta of classic rock from my older brother, and then all the new wave music from the 80s, like Depeche Mode and The Cure, and then the cool heavy metal, like not the LA sleazy stuff, but like Iron Maiden and like early Metallica and all of that. Right. So kind of bipolar in my influences, but yes. I lived in that triangle.
Yeah, that's funny. So when I was growing up, so I kind of came into like a teenager during the 90s, and yet I was kind of this weird eclectic kid. So when I was this is almost embarrassing. I don't know if I should say it. The first CD I ever bought, and CDs were like the things when I became kids, when I became a teenager, was MC Scat Cat. Singing with Paula Abdul.
Yes.
Do you remember this?
Yes.
So it was like this animated cat that kind of rapped, and Paula Abdul would add female vocals.
Did he have an album?
Yeah, I had it. So my mom probably still has it in the attic somewhere. So yeah, MC Scat Cat and Paula Abdul. I loved like the Top Gun soundtrack. Yeah. Like that was huge for me. I loved the Beatles and also Metallica. Like still to this day, like the Metallica S&M album is like one of my favorites in it. And so, yeah, I had this kind of weird thing. And then the most popular artist with Kurt Cobain, like I listened to the music, but it wasn't one that it wasn't like I never bought any of his albums or anything like that. So, but anyways, that was kind of, the way that I grew up. In fact, when I came here in the early 2000s, I was a resident at Crossroads.
Yeah.
And right next to my office when I was a resident was the worship guy. His name was Billy Cameron. And I had this little CD player in my office, and I would play music. And when I was wrapping it all up, we were going around, and the staff was encouraging me. And Billy looks at me, and he goes, "You have the most eclectic musical ear I've ever heard." He goes, "Some days I would walk in, and it would be like the grunge of Metallica. And then the next day I'd walk in, and you would be listening to Bach. Like, like just filling the sound, the world with sound, right?" So when it comes to today's youth and what they're listening to, one of the most popular artists out there is Juice Wrld. I don't know if your kids ever got into Juice Wrld.
No, but you mentioned him. So I typically watch videos after Lollapalooza or Coachella and just watch snippets from all the artists just because I know I'm older and I'm kind of I prefer what I prefer.
Yeah.
But I want to stay on the edge of what's out there and what people listen to. But Juice Wrld hasn't been on that platform yet. Yeah. So it was interesting checking him out.
Yeah, and yet on his YouTube videos, he has millions of hits, and on Spotify, hundreds and hundreds of millions. If not billions of listens on his songs. And one of his most popular song is Lucid Dreams. And so in getting ready for this, we actually sat down and listened to Lucid Dreams. And so I thought your take was pretty good. So share your thoughts on the song.
So when I first started listening to it, I noticed the guitar part in the background is "Shape of My Heart" by Sting, which it kind of shows my age, right? Like, please, Sting. But so
when you shot me that, I was like, "Sting who?" I'm just kidding.
But it was based on something that was beautifully melodic, but the audience that was listening to it literally would wonder, who's Sting?
Yeah.
This, probably 65-year-old English dude.
Yeah,
right. And which has nothing to do with anything Juice Wrld was doing.
Yeah. And then when you listen to like the lyrics of the song, really it sounds like a relationship that's gone bad that was probably his fault, but he's not really taking flame for it,
Yeah.
maybe, right? Like, yeah, totally, totally for emo world in that. And so, and yet at the same time, like, it is a hugely popular song,
Yeah.
even, you know, today, 4 years after his death. It's a hugely popular song that, you know, much of the middle school crowd, Juice Wrld's a pretty big deal. In fact, my son just a couple of weeks ago supported the foundation that started after his death, and they're sending him a Juice Wrld T-shirt.
Wow.
My wife and I, we had some conversation of whether we should let him do it or not, but you know, it was a free T-shirt if he donated $13 to the organization.
Seems like a bit of an exchange.
So, anyways, yeah, so he's getting his Juice Wrld T-shirt and all of this, and you know, I think part of, you know, Juice Wrld's ascension, although he was popular before, is really his death, and it's a pretty tragic death. You know, where if you don't know the story, popular artist, he's on his private jet. Law enforcement in Los Angeles gets word that there's guns and drugs on the jet, so they're waiting for him. When they land the plane, they jump on, they find him totally passed out. His manager says he stuffed some drugs, you know, down his throat that they didn't have any idea of what it was, and because of those drugs, he went into convulsion seizures, never woke up, and died. And you know, they ended up finding 70 pounds of marijuana on that flight, and you know, he had a history of drug abuse and also probably self-medicating for the anxiety and depression issues that he had in life. And so there's probably a part of his tragic death, like Cobain, that that elevated his music in that. But there is something within his lyrics that is resonating with youth culture today.
Yeah.
Hey, my name is Matt Manning, and I am the senior pastor here at Crossroads Church, and hopefully you are loving what you're listening to today. If you are, we would love for you to go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. You can leave us a comment. We read all of them. And if you like it, we'd love for you to share this with a friend. Every week we get together as a church to celebrate what God is doing, and you can join us every Sunday at 8:30, 10, and 11:30 online or in-house. Let's get back to the podcast.
And I think that you know, as we talk about this and really, you know, transition from Juice Wrld to really the bigger conversation is, you know, oftentimes I think as parents, we don't know what to think about the music that our kids are listening to, right? And you know, as Christians, maybe if you're a Christian listening to the podcast today, like our tendency is to want to, like, you know, listen to Hillsong and Tomlin and, you know, the worship leaders. And songs that are written by great worship people, like to fill our kids' souls with that, which is good. And yet at the same time, all of our kids live in the world. Yeah. And, you know, secular music isn't necessarily bad music. Like we just admitted, I'm a Metallica fan. You listen to Foo Fighter, and you know, and yet at the same time, there is concern as parents when it comes to the music that our kids are listening to and how we engage that. And you know, in the years of you and I hanging out together, what I've seen from you is a pretty innovative and engaging way that you've come along your kids with music. And I just thought today would be pretty cool just to hear from a dad, how you've engaged your kids when it comes to music. And so maybe if you could just share a little bit about your kids, and then what was some of the music that they listened to, and then I'll make up some questions.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, so my kids today, my daughter's 20 and my son will be 18 in July.
Yeah.
But yeah, growing up, I mean, early on, I remember I bought them the little cheap MP3 player that I think it loaded like 40 songs at the time.
Was it the iPod or was it the Microsoft Zoom?
No, like a Panasonic thing, because I knew it'd be in a bathtub and be destroyed at some point. So, but I loaded it with what I thought was safe and good. So it was U2, Johnny Cash, and like 4 worship songs. Probably more U2 and Johnny Cash in all transparency.
Yes. So are your kids fans of Johnny Cash today?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, if you're going to be a fan of someone, that's a good one.
But I definitely learned over the years that my ability to groom some of that was diminishing. That all of a sudden, you know, for my daughter, Fall Out Boy, and then as she and I started listening to one of our favorite bands is My Chemical Romance.
Okay.
And they're a pretty dark emo band.
Yeah.
But I started listening to them, and I didn't tell her because I didn't want to influence it, but I liked their music.
Okay.
And then she was like, a total My Chemical Romance fan, and then we, like, in later years, we actually came together. Matter of fact, we're gonna go see them in September together, which is kind of fun. But even all the various influences from peers and just from culture, just realizing that I couldn't stay that away.
Yeah.
So for me, and as a lover of music, I wanted to understand what the attraction was. And again, kind of with a musical background, like, I'm aware that oftentimes music, part of our attraction, sometimes it's the lyrics.
Yep.
Sometimes it's the sound, and it's the textures, and it's kind of just what they create. I mean, Pink Floyd or The Cure in the 80s, or like Metallica, right? It's just like, there's something about the Metallica drums and guitars that it either captures you or it doesn't.
Yeah.
And like for you and I,
repels.
it's like, there it is, right?
Yep.
And we love it. But so there's lyrics, there's sound and texture, and then there's the culture that the music comes from.
Yeah.
And even if it's an artificial culture, right? Like, but there's a way that people can identify with it. So like, I think of in the 90s and like with the whole Seattle grunge thing with Nirvana and Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, so much of that was the culture.
Mm-hmm.
It was the attitude.
Yeah.
And the music was an extension of that. Does it make sense?
Yeah, yeah. It was the whole culture of like, we don't really care about you.
Yeah.
Like, we're gonna do our own thing, make our own way in this world, and the grunge that came along with that. And so when your kids were in those formative teen years, right? And you as a dad, like, I think like one of the scariest things as parents is when we realize that we're not in control anymore.
Yeah.
When our kid is like 9, we can still pick them up and throw them in bed. When they're 14, it's a little harder. And all of a sudden, the peers and the friend groups all of us start having opinions into lives that are important to them, maybe as they should be. And as their musical tastes begin to kind of coalesce in their lives, like, that's a scary moment for parents. And so when your kids were in those years past the initial, iPod with Johnny Cash on it, and started listening to, some of their music, what was some of the things? How did you engage in that with them as a dad?
Yeah. So I would ask them what they're listening to, and a lot of times, I mean, I think our advice as parents early on was keep the dialogue open.
Mm-hmm.
Like obviously boundaries and bedtimes, and you got to eat a veggie once a month, right? All that stuff. Like, you're still the parent, but we've always sought to keep the dialogue open.
Yeah.
To pull them out, to be a safe person. So for our kids, I mean, it was a little easier with my son with sports and stuff because we were together a lot for that. But for my daughter, it was a lot of us grabbing a frappuccino and just hanging out, and just me with loving curiosity, like, tell me about your world.
Yeah.
And what are you into, and what are you looking at, and what are you listening to, and just trying to be as straight faced as I could.
Yeah.
And I just kind of pull out why those things were so attractive.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you remember a few years ago when Billie Eilish kind of hit the popularity?
Yeah.
And she had some songs out there that would probably be seen by most people as dangerous.
Yeah.
I mean, what she was communicating and all of that. And I remember there's some of the conversation that you and I had, and you weren't very aware of Billie Eilish at the time, but you went home and talked to your daughter about it.
Yeah.
And she had been listening, right?
Yeah.
Too. And do you remember some of that conversation?
Oh, yeah.
So maybe just share with people, because I thought that the way that you handled that with your daughter was really insightful, in terms of how we can deal with our kids.
Yeah. So that situation was pretty interesting because like we actually sat, like, our pastors, somebody brought up a Billie Eilish. A lot of us hadn't seen the video.
Yeah. And
we watched it together. Matter of fact, the song is "A Death of a Friend," I think it was.
Yeah, I had heard about it.
Yeah.
And it was kind of making its way through our youth. And so I sat down to listen to it, and that song is a scary song.
Oh my gosh. And the video is like pretty. It's like, this isn't just like fake
Yeah.
satanic stuff. It's like there's something spiritually that as I watched it, like something inside of me was like convulsing, like there's something here. So yeah, so I went home and asked my kids, and I for that one I put my dad card on the table and just said, you know, I'd really like you guys to not listen to this person, just be, you know, which I've rarely done.
Yeah.
Does it make sense? Because I really want to understand what the attraction is, whether it's their insecurity or they're able to identify with a group of people that make them feel strong and powerful. Does it make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think it is in Billie Eilish's music that's speaking to the youth culture today?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and her product has changed a lot, right?
Yeah,
Like,
right.
a lot of her early songs, like "A Death of a Friend," and there was a song before that where she's crying and they're black.
Yeah.
Her tears are black.
Right.
And it was just like, it was super like I didn't know artistically what the point was, but it was pretty dark. And now a lot of her music with Phineas, her brother, it's almost jazz.
Right.
I mean, it's like, it's super artistic, and I mean, she's
Kind of like a neo jazz.
It
like
is.
It's taking some of the jazz music of yesteryear,
Yeah.
you know, and putting it in kind of a modern context.
But I think part of the attraction to Billie Eilish is beyond her music, is her persona. Like she comes on stage with bulky clothes that don't show her body.
Yeah.
And she dresses how she's comfortable, and so it's kind of like a modern feminism of just like, this is who I am.
Yeah.
And I'm comfortable like this, and I don't need to be a product to be a product. Does it make sense?
Absolutely.
So I think a big part of the attraction is that, and she's kind of forming her own path. It appears, of her creativity, where her and her brother have a lot of leeway to be the kind of artist that they really want to be.
Yeah. Well, when you hit it big at 17, you know.
Yeah, it's pretty
you
nice.
made your money, now you can do what you want, right? In that, I think that, you know, as I've kind of watched you through the years, some of my takeaways that I've tried to really like emulate in my own parenting is, you know, when I hear my kids listening to a song that they love, or you know, that they're listening to over and over, like Lucid Dreams, is to have the conversation with them of why do you like this song?
Yeah, it's killer.
You know, what is it that what resonates with the song? Like, what's in you resonating with this? And to really try to understand the worldview in which they're identifying with.
Yeah.
Because as a parent, then that opens the door for me to parent them well.
Yes.
You know, to go down the road of with Lucid Dreams, right? And how it's all about a breakup. What is it about this song that resonates with you? And that's going to give insight into my son's soul, of how I can parent him, and even as a Christian dad, disciple him.
Yeah, absolutely. And kids, and I think a lot of adults don't realize how influence works, right?
Yeah.
Like how you can watch something and you can listen to something and you can become sensitized or desensitized really easily, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like in a high school for me, like I got a Pink Floyd The Wall from my older brother, and I started listening to it, and it's beautiful, great guitars and stuff, but I was unaware of the fact that, like, I mean, as high energy as I am, like, if I listen to the album, I'll do it to show you. It's kind of funny, but I become like really mellow, and I kind of go in this like before emo stage.
Yeah.
But the music influences me like that.
It's old guy emo.
Oh yeah, it is.
OG emo.
Just sit in a dark room with a couple cats.
Yeah, that's funny.
You know, but people don't I think realize how you might listen to something for a specific reason, and it influences your personality, your value system.
Yeah.
All those things kind of come along with it.
Yeah. I think a second thing that I've learned from you, and you said it a little bit earlier, was, ask the questions with a straight face.
Yeah.
You know, like don't be so quick, because I think our kids, like they see our reaction to it, of whether or not we approve or not, you know, and in that moment, like me asking my son or my daughter why they're listening to a song, or what they're listening to, and then the facial feature that I make without actually having listened to the song,
Yeah.
like is casting judgment even before I hear it. And that just speaks volumes to kids. And it may be a good song, it may be a bad song, but at that point, if you don't know it,
Yeah.
then, to engage as partially as you can, I think is a wise thing that you've done. And then I would say the third thing, my takeaway just from watching you has been really to like play the dad card loosely,
Mm-hmm.
and there's been a couple of times with my oldest son now who we've just had to say, hey, look, like that's not wholesome,
Yeah.
Yeah. And we want to give you the leeway, but with that freedom really comes, or with that trust and freedom comes a responsibility that you have to navigate. And right now, I don't know that you're navigating the freedom we're giving you well. So I have to take back some of that freedom till I can trust you with some of the decisions that you're making. And so, but to always have that conversation when we do, it's always in the context. Freedom in our house is always in the context of freedom, responsibility, and love. And it's these dials that we're constantly moving and having this open conversation with our kids about where they're at on the dial. And so when we have to play dad card, it's in the context of we're withdrawing some of this freedom until you show that you're more responsible in that. But to really play those cards strategically, because if I'm always pulling back responsibility, particularly as he's, 14 heading to 15, there's, at some point he has to stretch his wings. And that's a hard thing for a parent.
Absolutely. And you as they get older, you're going to wade into some aspects of culture that is relevant to them.
Yep.
I like as a youth pastor, I remember parents who were all in an uproar because their middle school kids at the time wanted to watch Pirates of the Caribbean.
Right.
And they were like, "No, not in our house." And I was like, "There's bigger battles."
Yep.
Like, and sure enough, in the years to come, like they lost influence and they lost that connection. I mean, that idea of those dials is so good because it's like, we want to give you this freedom.
Yeah.
But it's a launching process. I mean, even with our kids today, I mean, they're both going to be in college this year. So I'll be empty nester. I'll wear pants only a couple days a week. It'll be great.
Love your naked room.
I will.
That Failure to Launch. Did you ever see that movie?
Yeah. I joked about that. The kids don't think it's very funny. I think it's hilarious. But like even like our conversation with our kids at this stage is, you're not independent yet.
Yeah.
You're literally leaving the nest, but until you're off the payroll, right. Like you're not actually independent. Like we're still paying bills and stuff. So all of our conversations are about, you're on a trajectory toward independence.
Yes.
So I still have those knobs in front of me, so to speak.
Yeah.
Does it make sense? Because
absolutely.
Even if you're not under the roof, I still want to do everything in our power to launch you well.
Yeah.
And our goal is to launch you.
Yeah.
And to celebrate you in that.
Yeah, we want to give you ultimate freedom as parents.
Yes.
In music and life, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just a conversation I had today with my son. It's summertime, and so he's, like I said, he's 14, and giving him a little more leeway in terms of when he goes to bed and, all that. And so through the summer, we've been pretty loose. Well, he has to get his butt out of bed at 6 a.m. to make it to swimming. And today was a hard day. And so we had to have the dial conversation and going, hey, look, man, you really love the freedom that you're getting and choosing when to go to bed at night. That also comes with the responsibility of you getting to swim practice in the morning. And if you can't, then I need to turn back the freedom dial until you can show me that you're responsible enough to do this. And so, yeah, that's been a huge application in our lives when it comes to parenting. So, I think hopefully this has been helpful for people listening today, and just how to handle music in terms of parenting with your kids. And if you do have any questions, we'd love to answer them. I don't know what to give, Aiden. Oh, I know what it is. This is a cut part for Aiden. So hopefully this podcast has been helpful for you today in your parenting, particularly when it comes to music with kids. If you have any questions about this, we would love to be able to provide some resource and answer. You can simply email info at crossroadsabc.com. Just put in the subject line podcast. And if you have any questions along these lines, we would love to hear of them, get back to them. It could be a future podcast, sometime down the road.
Right on.
Anyways, it's been fun. Thanks,
Yes.
James. And hopefully you've enjoyed this. We'll catch you next time.